webinar sponsored by the government-funded program Roots into Languages. My name is Erica Corradini, and I am the manager of 2 national networks for translation and interpreting within the Roots into Languages program. And today I will host the webinar and moderate the discussion. So please post as many questions as you would like, because we've got 4 wonderful panelists today who will address your questions. We've got, well, I'm delighted to introduce Bernardette Holmes, Diane Appleton, Lizzie Fane, and Raquel Fernandez. And now I will give each of them an opportunity to say a little bit more about themselves. Bernardette, would you like to start?
Thank you, Erica, and greetings, everybody. As you know, my name is Bernardette Holmes. I have been, for the last couple of years, researching language needs for business with a view to ensuring that we in the education community, both in schools and in universities, are really addressing the world as it is and making sure that our languages are represented both through taught curricula and also the languages we bring from our homes. And that leads me to another role that I have, which is campaign director for Speak to the Future, which is a campaign promoting and advancing language capability and recognizing the value of languages and intercultural understanding to all aspects of our lives. I started out as a teacher. I then became an advisor. I've been involved in inspection. I've been involved in research. So really fully comprehensive, and also in initial teacher education, making sure that our teachers are fully equipped to face the challenges of a very volatile and changing educational environment and social environment. So that's me.
Diane, would you like to say something about yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Diane Appleton. I'm the Deputy Head of the Careers and Employability Service at the University of Liverpool. I'm also a careers advisor. I've been working with language students for several years now, and I'm responsible for developing the employability skills of language students and helping them plan their careers. And part of that also involves working with employers and helping them to recruit graduates with language skills. So that's me.
Lizzie?
Hello everybody. So I'm Lizzie Fane, and I'm the founder of thirdyearabroad.com, which is a big community of students who study or work abroad during their degree course. And through launching that platform, all these students come to this platform to find advice, and actually we found that they really want advice about how to use their languages, but also their intercultural skills, their experience of living abroad in their careers. So we've launched globalgraduates.com, which is our jobs board, and we have it as a free place where people can post roles to attract these students and give them opportunities, so work placements, internships, jobs, and not only for when they graduate, but also during their degree course. So it's a really exciting community there, and it's very early stages, but it's growing, and we're working towards bringing all our sites onto one platform. The other one is called tyanswers.com, and it's a Q&A platform. So if you've got questions about studying or working abroad during your degree, you can go on there, ask your questions, and get these wonderfully experienced students to answer them. So it's just a great big community of studying abroad, speaking languages, and finding incredible opportunities for your career.
Raquel?
Hello, good morning everybody. I'm Raquel Fernandez-Sanchez, and I'm originally from Spain, but I moved to this country in '97 to work at Exeter University, where I used to work at the Department of Hispanic Studies. After completing my PhD, I moved here to Ashton University in Birmingham, where I teach Spanish in several programs, and one of the programs where I teach is the Spanish, the International Business and Modern Languages, so I teach Spanish in combination with business. I'm also Associate Dean for Learning and Teaching here at Ashton since 2014. And I'm here in my capacity as Roots into Languages Director for the West Midlands. And I'm very privileged to be part of this initiative and to work with brilliant colleagues at national level and also at regional level. Here the consortium involves the university, my own colleagues here at Ashton University, but also the universities of Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Warwick, Hill, and Coventry, and we are all equally passionate about the teaching and learning of foreign languages.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Before we start with the first question, I just wanted to remind the audience especially that you can post your questions on Twitter using the hashtag RoutesLIVE, or you can log in to YouTube using your Gmail account, and hopefully a chat feed will open up where, again, you can post your questions to the panelists. But let's start with the first question, and perhaps Bernardette, you would like to tell the audience and to the audience a little bit about the Born Global report, and especially in relation to the benefits of multilingualism.
Thank you. Absolutely. Well, I think it's actually in the title that we represent the benefits of multilingualism, in the sense that we are now talking about a generation of young people who are genuinely born global. What we set out to do when we began the research was to engage with businesses across the sectors and looking at global business, looking at small to medium enterprises, including sole traders, those young people who are coming out from universities, college or school and setting up their own companies, where languages fit in this new matrix of global employability. And one of the major things that we found out, of course, is that global companies recruit globally, unsurprisingly. And the fact that we are hyper-connected through technology and with an increasingly mobile workforce, labour market, all of our young people entering whichever occupation, whichever sector, will be competing globally. So really what we're looking at are people who can bring to the labour market as many skills and aptitudes and as wide a range of talents as possible, because you need to differentiate yourself as an individual to be employable in that labour market. And for the world to be successful, for business to be successful, we need to be able to make connections at all sorts of different levels. Now that is obviously enabled by more people having the ability to speak in more than one language. And it's also dependent upon intercultural understanding and flexibility, cultural agility, having the willingness to engage with others and recognize that your worldview is not necessarily the worldview shared by everyone. And that's within your team, and it's within your client base, with all of the people that you serve. Because what is essential is that in any role, you understand the people with whom you're working and the function that you have within your organization. And increasingly, we are dealing with a world which is very volatile, which demands fresh perspectives and a great deal of flexibility. Now, how do languages fit into all of that? Is there a demand for language skills? Well, of course there is a demand for language skills. Will one language dominate over another? Well, I would say to you, in terms of employability, our survey found that any language in addition to English is going to be of value. Why? Because it takes you out of the monocultural, monolingual lens and prepares you far better for the world in which you are working and living. So it's in a sense a characteristic of education and employability for the 21st century to have competence in at least one other language. We found that most of the employers that we met, particularly in the global companies, have a wide range of different geographies, they call them, different countries, communities with whom they work. So you could be talking about organizations that operate with 60 or 70 different languages. So a labor force which is characterized by 60 or 70 different languages in addition to English. Is English definitely the lingua franca? Yes, undoubtedly so. That was undoubtedly the case. So what we then face with our, if you like, fresh perspectives on languages other than English in schools and universities is to understand that even if English is the lingua franca, is English enough? Certainly not. English is a nexus. It connects different language communities, different cultural groups. But the ability to move across languages, to translanguage, and to understand, as I say, multiple perspectives and different cultures, that ability is crucial. So for every occupational category, the more you have of the understanding of cultural diversity and cultural flexibility, the better. And that comes through language skills. We found also that global companies tend to believe that they can deal with the broader market because they do have such a wide range of different languages within their companies, within their organizations. So they may say to you, we prefer to hire young people with language skills. It's not essential necessarily because we have such linguistic and cultural diversity within our organizations. It becomes far more crucial when you're talking about small to medium enterprises, where you may have micro-organizations of less than 9 employees. You may have many which are operating between 1 and 4 employees. And if they're trying to deal with an export market, if they're trying to sell their product or their service across very volatile markets across the world, they could become an inadvertent trader by simply putting their presence on the internet. So they could be dealing with requests from many different language communities at any stage of their operations. So do they need language skills? Of course they do, and the more the better. They also need young people who are willing to perhaps come in with one language but readily pick up another. So they need people who are versatile and who are willing to understand that English is not going to be enough all of the time. It's a great asset, but you need to maximize your assets by adding to them and being willing, even if you are not a language specialist, to pick up levels of fluency and cultural agility in the widest range of languages possible. And that will help you as an individual, and it will certainly help your company, your organization, and it's really good for the country. Shall I finish there with that?
Thank you very much. Yes. Did anybody else have something to add to what Bernardette said? Did anybody want to chip in? We've just got a question coming in from Chiara. What can you do with GCSE French? Perhaps Lizzie or Diane, would either one of you like to answer the question?
Lizzie,
Diane, go for it.
Okay, I'll take that. So it's GCSE French. Is that the question?
What can you do with GCSE French?
Yeah. I think that one of the myths about language skills is that you have to be, completely fluent in order for an employer to be interested in the fact that you've got language skills. And of course that is true for some employers, but not for all. So I think, as Bernardette so eloquently has said about the report and what she's learned from it, is that there's a whole range of employers out there who really do need people who've got, a language ability, and then some of the cultural awareness that goes with studying a language, whether it's at GCSE or A-level or beyond. So there's loads of opportunities. I think what you have to do really is think about why employers do need people with language skills. And once you start thinking about that, and I think Bernardette has mentioned it, but things like, employers are trading overseas, they're running marketing campaigns overseas, they're doing advertising campaigns, but it's not just business. We've heard that different police services have been recruiting people with languages, or social workers. So it's just thinking about why might somebody want to recruit somebody with language skills, and it's because either your clients speak different languages, your customers, the people you're trying to sell to. So I always say to students, it's not really about what you can do with a language, it's what you want to do. It's thinking about where do I want to use my skills, my motivations, what am I passionate about, and then looking at the kind of employers that might be able to help you with that. So I say it could be business, management, finance, public sector, and it's very, very broad. And obviously, as a careers advisor, what I would say is, take some guidance from a professional about that, so that you can start thinking, what do I love? What am I passionate about, and where might I be able to use my language as part of it? Because it really is an endless list of opportunities for you. I don't know whether, Lizzie, you want to add anything to that.
Well, what I would say is that as you say, the company gets something out of you speaking languages, and of course the student is thinking, well, what's my interest? What am I going to get out of it? But actually, you should also think of what the company is going to think of the student. So there's a person who's got French GCSE, maybe done quite well. They're obviously got a very inquisitive mind. It's not an easy GCSE. It's very much known for being a hard one. So they're up for a challenge, and they also use a different part of their mind, which I find personally, with my language skills, I speak Italian, and I honestly think that I feel cleverer when I'm speaking it, because you've got almost two brains going on at the same time, or your new brain, your Italian brain or your French brain. And I think that in my experience, I've met a lot of language students, and genuinely I think they are very, very sparky, and I think that the idea that they're speaking other languages means that they are using another part of their brain, and they are very quick and quite clever. So I think that's something that employers actually think about when they're hiring somebody with language skills as well.
A question for Bernardette coming in from Mark. Is the Born Global final report available?
We have reported on the findings. The actual final report is about to be made available, and it will be online with a short version and longer versions of the data which have contributed to it. And we hope that will be coming through shortly. So yes, it's on its way, Mark.
We've got another question coming in from Annie. Can a second language help in careers such as law? Diane, would you like to take this one?
Yes, definitely. Increasingly law firms. It was law that you said, was it? Yeah.
Law, yes.
Yeah, law firms are increasingly, international, whether it's sort of corporate and commercial law, or environmental law or human rights law. So we do see that legal employers are asking for people with language skills, but not just the language skills, but obviously the cultural awareness and those other skills that go with needing to be a good lawyer. So say communication skills, analytical skills, but those are all skills that if you study a language you'll get that, whether you do it at GCSE, at A level, or at degree level, or beyond. So I don't think employers will ever just say, we only need language skills, but that language skills plus the communication skills, perhaps some work experience, within a legal sector, analytical skills, reading information and assimilating it. But that's what, being a linguist does for you. So yes, definitely, we've seen an increase in law firms asking for people with a second language.
Thank you. We've got lots of questions coming in, and here's another one from Fritz. How many languages should you be able to speak? Raquel, would you like to start on that one?
Thank you very much. Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think any language is an asset these days, as we've been discussing, and as Bernardette's report very clearly states. I don't think it's a matter of learning how many languages, but it's about being passionate about at least one of them, and realizing that actually, as we were mentioning before, English is not enough in this global market, because we've got many international students who will speak a number of very, of languages to a very high standard. So I don't think it's a matter of, the more I speak, the more employable I am, because it's not necessarily about how many languages you speak. It's about the skills that come with learning a language, and it could be you could acquire all those skills by just learning one. We are not talking just about the linguistic aspects we acquire when we are learning a language, and how good we become at grammar and vocabulary and be able to say something in many languages, it's much more important than that. It goes beyond that, and it's about the cultural skills, it's about awareness of other cultures, it's about self-awareness as well, and it is, for example, proven that the people who speak languages become more fluent in their own native language as well. And that gives you enormous self-confidence and very good presentation skills. So I think those are the skills that businesses are valuing these days. And it's therefore not so much about learning a number of languages, but learning a language that will obviously benefit and be very, very valued by businesses these days.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask questions. Well, I will put together two different questions because they're very specific in the profession that they would like to know about. So Hadria would like to know if French GCSE is required in physiotherapy, and Gabby would like to know if French is useful in architecture. Diane, would you like to say something about this?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, for physiotherapy, it wouldn't be a requirement. Obviously, there is a GCSE and A-level requirement for that, and obviously French would count towards the number that you would need for it. But you know, again, you know, I think that it's worth thinking about, you know, where you might work as a physiotherapist. You know, would you want to stay in the UK? Would you want to work abroad? And you know, the people that you work with aren't necessarily all going to be, you know, English mother tongue speakers. So you may find that, you know, might not use your language skills very often in a role as a physiotherapist, but, you know, you may find that there's an opportunity to use it. So although, as far as I'm aware, you don't need it as part of the requirement, it will, you know, count towards the number of GCSEs and A-levels, etc., that you would need. And, you know, I would never say that a language is never going to be important for any career that you choose. And I think the second question was about architecture, wasn't it?
Yes, French in architecture.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, you know, the risk of repeating myself too much, it would be the same for that, really. It'll be a useful addition to the qualifications that you have. And again, lots of architecture practices are global practices. You might be working with people from different countries. So even if your clients are UK clients, you may find that the people that you work with in your team are from all over the world. So absolutely, French would be useful for it.
A question just came in for Lizzie. How easy is it to work outside the EU in terms of visa, especially in countries such as Russia, China, and so on?
I'm not entirely sure, because obviously it depends on if you're a UK national or so where you're from. Each individual case is different. So I mean, if for example, I've got friends who are born in different countries, and a friend who's born in Australia who's just heading out there to do some work there because she's got an Australian passport. So obviously everyone's situation is different, and it's really important that you research it and you know that you're allowed to work in that country. So I'm really sorry, that's not a very helpful answer. But can I add something to the previous question as well? Is that all right? I was just going to say that you know, if you love French and you love architecture, then what you'll find with your career is that it will sort of head in that direction. You'll be maybe working in France in architecture. So it's just so important that you choose the subjects that you absolutely feel passionate about, and your career sort of goes in that direction. And I personally studied, my degree was Italian and history of art because I loved both, and I ended up, my dissertation was on Italian art history, and I had to write one in Italian as well. So if you love those subjects, you'll be doing them in both languages. And my career took me studying language obviously to Italy, and you're face to face with the architecture and French that you love, for example. So it's just really important that you love your French, and that's why you study it. And then whatever subject it goes with, you'll find your niche. You'll find the thing that you're uniquely brilliant at, and that's how you have a happy and fulfilling career, really.
Raquel, did you want to add something to this? You've got to unmute your mic. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, just because it's a question that we get asked very, very often. I think there seems to be a conflict between what I'm passionate about and what I would like to study, and is this really practical and pragmatic to do it? And I think it's worth mentioning that students would be surprised about the amount of combinations you can do with languages. It doesn't have to be just 2 languages. You don't need to be doing Spanish and French or French and German. If you want to go on with studying languages at university, you could combine languages with many other areas of study these days. And also something really important that the Born Global report mentioned as well, the role of the university-wide language programs these days. Maybe you don't want to continue your studies at degree level in terms of a language, but you can do a degree in whatever, let's say architecture, and then study a language alongside. And most universities these days are able to provide that, to provide that sort of service, and that's something extra that will make you more employable as well. It will make you, for example, one of the things that you could do with something like that is spend a year abroad, even if the year abroad requirement is not part necessarily of an essential part of your degree. You could do that, and that automatically makes you more employable as well. Spending some time abroad, working or studying, makes you much more employable. Thanks.
Thank you. A question coming in from Elizabeth. What about translanguaging in business? How is this happening in practice? Bernardette, would you like to say something about this?
Thank you. Now that is a very interesting question. What we have discovered is that, for example, if you're on the trading floor of a large bank, what you will find is that you will have experts who are French native speakers, who of course have fluent English and other languages, or there'll be a German-speaking group, or Italian or Spanish-speaking groups, different language communities. Now, they will have specialisms in the particular financial sector that they're working in, but they will also be able to move across from one language to another. So one of my colleagues, one of the people that I've talked to and worked with looking at the financial services sector, describes this as a kind of ocean with little islands of different languages, and English flows around those communities and links them all together, but they also speak within their own language groups and simply translanguage. So you might find somebody starting out on a communication with a client, perhaps using their first language, and then there's a little bit of English, and then there's a little bit of the first language again, and it's just natural to translanguage. In the general working life of companies, I've talked to a large number of companies who've talked about the multilingual nature and culturally diverse nature of their labour force, of their colleagues. And again, you'll find little clusters of people having a little chat in their first language, and then something in English, and then joining in with one another's languages. So somebody who perhaps is coming in from Spain, who may not have very strong English just yet, but it's improving, they may find themselves having a little chat with somebody in another language that they share. So if it's an Italian person, it could be that they start to speak in Spanish with Spanish colleagues, and it's quite natural to find this. Generally, English is the strongest language in all of the places that we researched, but you will find this translanguaging quite normally. In terms of formal communication, that's a different matter. If English is chosen as the formal language, which it mostly is, then formal communications will be in English. It does not mean that they will not be translated into another language. So translanguage happens formally and informally in the course of practical day-to-day working life. In terms of written communications, in emails, it can be both. But once you talk about formal, legally binding communications, contracts and so on, you will find that it is English, and then there may be translations into the client's language where that is required. And sometimes it is required to be in two languages. So it happens. It's happening, and it's natural. I think that the message that we would like to convey, really, from all the research that evidence we've found, is that multilingualism is the new normal. English is the global language. That's undeniable. But other languages are very much in use. So it's really challenging that assumption that you can get by with just English. It's certainly reaffirming that English is there and is present and is the nexus, but other languages are very much naturally in use. The professional world, if you like, is functionally multilingual.
Thank you. How does having a range of languages increase your chances of having the best opportunities in sport and the workplace? Diane, I think it's you again.
Having a range of languages.
Yes.
I think we've mentioned before, really, that it's not necessary to have a range of languages. It's being passionate about languages or another language, and utilising all that brings you as an individual. But of course, if you've got a range of different languages, you can work with a wider, perhaps, range of employers on projects involving different countries and so on. And I think sport's a brilliant example of that, really, in that it is a truly global sector, isn't it? If you look at things like the Olympics, for example, where they took on people from all over the world to work with visitors to various sporting events and so on. And there's areas like sports marketing, again, which is global. So there's no doubt that if you have more languages, there's more opportunities. But I mean, I would really like to pick up on this difference, really, between studying one language and several languages. I mean, I've certainly not noticed any difference for our own graduates, whether they've done perhaps single honours French, or they've done French, German and Spanish, or they've done French and business. If you look at the kinds of roles that graduates go into, they don't seem to differ that much, whether people have done one language, several languages, joint degrees and so on. And I think it's just because employers do really value the skills and the motivations and that kind of personality that you bring as a linguist.
Yes, Lizzie?
I was just going to add there that I think it's really interesting. I don't know if anybody else watching has experienced this, but my Italian teacher at school was French. And I found that really, really useful, because I had to study French since I was 5. And when she'd say, this is the word in Italian, this is the word in French, and it makes those connections in your head, I think that is a very, very useful thing for your language learning. And I know there are quite a few students who will study 2 languages at university, or maybe 3, and they will, for example, go on their year abroad in Italy and have Spanish lessons in Italian with a class of Italians learning Spanish. And actually, I think the benefits of learning multiple languages, that's one of them, that you learn the language so much that your whole brain is involved in the learning. And actually, yeah, I think that's a really big benefit of learning 2 languages at once at university.
Talking about specific languages, Annie asks, is Chinese useful in the workplace? Diane and perhaps Lizzie?
Yes, Chinese, Mandarin is getting, increasingly important in the workplace. It's definitely, competing now with sort of the traditional languages of French, German and Spanish, which always sort of tended to be the most in-demand languages. So I think, Mandarin is definitely important. China as a country is really sort of spreading its wings in terms of their global reach in the employer market. Lots of companies are trading with China. So, here in Liverpool, we've got very strong links with Shanghai, for example, so that, quite a lot of local businesses are trading with China. So if you've got some Mandarin Chinese, then it is going to be really useful. So absolutely, Mandarin is a language to watch for the future, but I don't think that should be at the expense of other languages, because I think there's other countries as well, you know, people, places like you know, Russia, India, Brazil, you know, and as well as sort of European countries, that, you know, we don't want to sort of say, well, actually China is now the big push, let's get everybody, you know, learning Mandarin, because I think, you know, all languages are going to be important. But yeah, there's no doubt that that China and its impact in the world is making a difference to people wanting to study Mandarin as well.
Lizzie, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes. So with 3 global graduates, we've been working a bit with UKTI, which is UK Trade and Industry, and they run a program which is called Postgraduates for International Business. And I think this is really interesting because as a postgraduate, if you're studying Mandarin, for example, you could apply for a role with a small company that's maybe British but has a product they want to sell in China, and so they will get help from UKTI. Who might be posting roles on the internet for a very short-term project. For example, helping a small bookseller attend a trade show in China, and you can go there with them. That's the idea. So maybe work on it with them for a month and go over to China for a month for trade shows, and you are the middleman, and you are helping this company meet new customers, meet new clients. So it's a really, I think, quite a fun opportunity to use your language skills, but it really, I think, would show you how important it is being able to cross that bridge. And then the other thing I would mention is that I think with Chinese in particular, that you would worry that if you were, you know, you applied for a role which required, you know, really did require your Mandarin or your Cantonese knowledge, I think that might be quite intimidating. And what I'd say is that there are a lot of companies that love the fact that you learn a language like that, because it's very, very different from English, of course, but that you can use it like a sort of superpower. So the fact that you've got it means that you're interested, and that you might have very basic Mandarin, but you can, you know, sign off emails, that sort of thing. But if you can understand the conversations that are happening next to the water cooler, or people on the other side of the table are whispering to each other during a business deal, you know, that is so valuable. And it might not mean that you're completely fluent in the language, but it does mean that you have an interest, that you're constantly learning, your vocab's improving, and that is how you improve on the job, I think.
On the same topic, Lizzie, is German an important language?
I mean, the same again, really. I would just say, you know, of course it's important. There are so many people who speak German. Of course it's important. I think it's really the most important thing is for you as an individual to choose a language that you love, because with speaking German also comes the German culture, visiting Germany a lot, you know, so that you get to know various dialects, that sort of thing. So of course it's important, and you'll absolutely find a job if you speak German, but it needs to be the right language for you, to make you go beyond what you're taught in your classroom, to make you want to do a German exchange, and have a pen pal in Germany or that sort of thing. So really it's a cultural thing. So if you love Germany, then yes.
Yeah, perhaps if I can just add something there as well. I think it's well known, isn't it, that fewer people are studying German. So, you know, I've noticed that, you know, we get quite a lot of vacancies asking for German, but, you know, fewer and fewer people can actually apply for them. So I don't think, I mean, I do agree with Lizzie, you shouldn't just take a language because you think, well, that's the language that will get me a job. You've got to do the language because, you know, you love the language, you want to learn about the country and the culture and so on. But, you know, from an employability perspective, you know, German definitely is a good language to have.
Thank you. A question perhaps for Raquel about university and languages. What is the language to more likely get you into a better university? From Jack.
It depends on the. I mean, it depends on the university. It depends on the entry points in its university, obviously. So there are several factors to consider. There isn't a right or wrong answer for this question, I'm afraid. It depends a lot on each institution, their entry points and requirements, the availability of languages. Not every language is offered in every university. But I would say that it's very important when you are making your study choices to feel very, very sure about the language you want to study, and to see how passionate you are about a particular language. Is maybe more than which institution or which which language is going to get me to the best institution, if you know what I mean. I think you need to be, you're going to be spending the next 4 years at university studying a subject, and it's really important that you choose whatever you feel passionate about. And then you decide on, several institutions, and decide what institutions, and have a look at a proper look at what those institutions are offering. Some institutions might have a more contemporary approach to the learning and teaching of a language. Some other institutions might have a more traditional approach. In some institutions, you might be able to combine that language with another subject, but not with others. So I think those are the things. And I think that employers, and Diane will correct me if I'm wrong, but hopefully employers are moving away from this idea of the best graduates come from certain institutions, or from just 2 institutions in the country. Hopefully that's not the case anymore. I think employers can see beyond that, and employers can see that graduates these days graduate with a fantastic suite of skills regarding the name of the institution. The institution can help, but it's also the work that you'll be doing in the next few years. And as I was saying before, for example, this is clearly proven that attainment at university and high performance at university, for example, is very clearly linked with spending some time on placement. It is well-known research to prove that spending some time abroad and some international exposure will improve not just your student experience, because it's a fantastic thing to do from a personal and academic point of view, but will also improve your chances of being employable, or more employable, or ended up in graduate jobs with good salaries. So I think those are the things that you might want to be thinking when making the choice to come to university, and not necessarily, should I be going for this institution or that one? You're going to be spending 4 years with us, with an institution, and it's very important that you do some research into the programs and the combinations of languages, or language with another subject, and what suits you as an individual, because you want it to be enjoyable as well. I think we are talking about more utilitarian approach to languages and how useful they are, and that's undeniable, but it's also great fun. Learning a language is a fantastic experience, and you want to be doing something that is enjoyable in the years as well.
Thank you. Are employers concerned about declining language skills? Bernardette?
Yes, they are. There has been ongoing dissatisfaction with the outcomes, I have to say, from the evidence that we have seen from both school and college leavers and university graduates, it has to be said. The CBI reports regularly each year with the Education and Skills Survey that they conduct with Pearson, and there's ongoing concern about the capabilities of our school and college leavers and graduates. They're calling for language skills, but they call for language skills within a wider matrix of skills. There's a skills deficit in this country, in England in particular, and this couples with a deficit in commercial awareness, in international customer awareness, in the ability to be able to manage different cultural norms and expectations, to understand the organizations and clients with whom you're working. And so languages come as part of that, in a sense. So yes, they are concerned. Is there a clamour for a particular language? Well, it depends where you're looking. In most cases, the larger companies do not seek any particular discipline. So if you're looking for language-specific jobs, there may be some, if they are particularly looking for language skills because they want interpreters, translators, or someone who is a specialist in that particular culture for that particular person, that particular job that they're recruiting. But in most cases, most jobs, unless they are specialist linguist jobs, do not specify the graduate discipline. So in that sense, employers are concerned that many young people come without languages, because it tells you what kind of person you are. It limits your attributes and skills that you bring to a post. So you have to look very closely to see what sort of opportunities there are for you to use your languages, but don't think that if you don't see immediately that a post requires a language, that the employer doesn't value that language or isn't concerned if you don't offer one. I come back to this question of employability and employability for the 21st century. Wherever you look, you need to be understanding that you are dealing with a multilingual, culturally diverse labour market. So if you come to that labour market offering a limited range of skills, you are at a competitive disadvantage. You are not as attractive as a candidate to the employer. So yes, they are concerned. Are you going to find them saying, we need this particular language as distinct from the other language? You're probably not going to find that sort of evidence. But in general, they're going to be looking for young people who have an international outlook, who are culturally agile and willing to work abroad, willing to be mobile. And your language capability, going right the way back to that first question, was it Katie or Kate that asked us a question about GCSE languages, what you do with GCSE French. Well, the fact you have it shows something about you. It's not just the way that you see the world that changes when you learn a language, it's the way the world sees you, and employers are looking for people with international capabilities. So languages are there in that. So are they concerned? Yes, of course they are.
Sorry, we lost the audio for some reason.
Ah.
Okay. The next question. What are the main jobs that require a language? A question coming from Edward. Diane, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy question to answer because you know, it sounds a bit woolly, but I would say, you know, it depends what you want to do. And obviously, teaching, translating, and interpreting are three career areas where, you know, if you don't have a language skill, you won't be able to be a translator or interpreter. And if you want to be, you know, a Spanish teacher, then you need Spanish. But I think outside of that, you've got a whole range of careers where it's the employer itself, really, that that asks for the languages rather than the actual job that it might be. So, you know, I always sort of use an example. If you were an accountant, you could work for an accountancy firm and just never use your language skills at all. But if you worked for, you know, a global accountancy firm where your clients are from all over the world, you may find that you're asked to use your languages every single day of your working life. So I think that, you know, that's the distinction, really, that it's not about a certain range of jobs that you can do if you've got language skills. It's about looking at the employers themselves and thinking, you know, who are their clients, who do they work with, what kind of projects do they work on, you know, who would my colleagues be, and therefore is this the kind of employer where I might use my language skills. But I suppose if you wanted to know, you know, which are the most perhaps, you know, obvious ones, then, you know, there are certain sectors. So, for example, you know, within the travel and tourism sector, obviously, then also within business, so, you know, marketing, within advertising, you know, I've mentioned accountancy and finance, and within the public sector where you've got civil service and, you know, the European Union and the civil servants that work within that. But I wouldn't like to sort of put a limit on it, really. You know, if you look at where our graduates go, they work in areas like publishing, within recruitment consultancies. They work within, you know, banking and finance, and say public sector. You know, within the media even. So it's not easy to say, you know, this is a typical language career, because there's loads of careers, and you never know with a language skill when you'll actually be called upon to use your language, because you're the one in that company who's got the excellent language skills. So it could be, you know, absolutely anything. You know, retail is another example. quite a lot of our big retailers are international retailers, so having people with language skills really important. So don't limit yourself to certain careers that you might think of as language careers. I think I said it to one of our earlier callers. Think about what you really want to do, what you're passionate about, and then try and identify the employers that can meet what you're looking for, and you probably find that that's the kind of employer who would need language skills.
Yes. Question from Morgan. What have you found helpful with having a language? Raquel first, and then Lizzie, perhaps.
Okay, lots of things, and as I said, not necessarily always on a professional level, which is, for me, it was very, very obvious. I spent a year abroad here, and I suppose that changed the course of my life in terms of career prospects. And I love my job, so I'm very privileged to have a job, which I love. Partly because I could speak the language. I was very passionate about teaching Spanish, but I could also speak English. Therefore, it was possible for me to teach in a higher education environment in the UK. But also for things on a more personal level. As we were saying, sometimes the experiences, when you are on work placement or when you are working abroad or whatever, conversations don't just happen around the negotiation table. They happen in the having a coffee with your colleagues and things like that, and you will meet amazing people. It gives you the opportunity to travel in a completely different way when you know the local language as well. So languages do open many doors because also it will set a difference between you and other peers who cannot speak the languages. And as I said before, it's not just about the more pragmatic use of the language. Yes, you are able to communicate with the locals, or you are able to do certain things. It's also about all the critical skills. For example, when you learn a language and you learn about other countries, you also question your own country and your own beliefs, and that's really useful actually in terms of mutual understanding. That's very, very important. I think it changes you as a person for the best, hopefully.
Lizzie, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, languages obviously, we've talked a lot today about the value to you yourself, but in my personal experience, I think that languages definitely put you through difficult experiences, and as an entrepreneur, I think that that's probably, that is what gave me my idea for my business. You're in a new country, studying your language on your year abroad from university, and you can't find certain things. So that could be an opportunity to import things from the UK into your new country in the future. Or you go back home after your year abroad and you go, I miss whatever it was that you could find there, and you spot an import university opportunity from there. So in my personal experience, it's just opened so many doors because I love the language and I love the country, and you can definitely tell that from the way I'm speaking about it and how I always say it's so important that you're passionate about the subject. But what I would say, I've met so many interesting people. I think it's really, really important to not just look on jobs boards. She says running a jobs board, but not just look on jobs boards for jobs. Actually apply speculatively to a company that you want to work for, that offers a product that you're interested in, or a service that you're interested in, and just because you want to join them. So when you're sitting in front of an interviewer, you've got all this language experience, you've got these amazing cultural experiences that you can talk about. And as somebody who's interviewed people, it's really nice because you talk about it in such a passionate way that it's a wonderful topic to get you on as an interviewee. And I think that way many more interesting opportunities will come up. And I think my final point is that a lot of the time students, they want to improve their languages because maybe they've done a degree and they think, oh, my languages are quite good, but I'd quite like to improve my languages and not be hired for them. And what I would say in that case is that you really should consider doing a job abroad, but applying because you've got such wonderful English language skills. And then, for example, you could be working in a company and you could be doing all of their, all of their social media, for example, in English, but all your colleagues, you're living abroad, all your colleagues are Spanish, for example, you're experiencing the Spanish culture, you're chatting with them every day, your Spanish is getting better and better, but you're hired for something you are really good at. So I think that's a great way of really getting stuck in if you would like to use your e.g. Spanish in the future. And I've definitely found that that was how my Italian improved when I worked for Time Out in Florence on my year abroad, and that was just wonderful. Hired for my English language skills, but I had to speak to lots of locals in Italian, and it was just a wonderful way to learn.
Yes, sounds lovely. A question for Raquel. Is it easy to teach your native language in another country without being part of a company? From Charlotte.
Say that again, sorry, yes.
The question, I repeat the question, which was asked by Charlotte. Is it easy to teach your native language in another country without being part of a company?
Well, we've got a lot of students who find this experience very, very rewarding. If you ask me, teaching here Spanish, I've done it for a number of years. Obviously, I've got my qualifications, so I love it. I don't find it challenging. When I find it challenging, it's because I find it challenging in a good way, because the students challenge me. But if I think of someone young with no qualifications who can go abroad and teach abroad, I think in my experience here, students always love it, actually. There's a fantastic program, which is the British Council assistantship program, by which students go abroad and study, and teach English in their native language in schools. Probably if there are some school students watching, they might have an assistant in their school, and they know the amazing job they do. I don't think it's difficult. I don't think you have. I think you have to prepare, obviously. And the same when you are teaching. We've got many students on placement abroad teaching the native language in a company in France or in Germany. And as I said, it's not difficult. It's not as easy as people might think. It's not just a matter of I speak the language, therefore I can teach. And I think that's very important, and to recognize that we want languages to be valued, and it needs to be recognized. Learning a language can be challenging, and it needs a lot of work. But my goodness, it's a wonderful, very rewarding experience. So yeah.
There are quite a few people who would like to know if Russian is a useful language, but perhaps on that note, I might like to ask a slightly broader question, perhaps to Bernardette to begin with. What are the languages of the future, and what level of proficiency will be required?
Well, as we have said, there are advantages to having any language in addition to English. But if we look to the languages of the future, let's think in terms of the business world as is, and as they predict their economic growth. At the moment, we certainly have a call for German, French and Spanish. When we looked at the companies, the global companies and the SMEs, those are the languages that are most in use because they are our greatest trading partners. In some cases, we obviously work with Anglophone countries like the US considerably. But in terms of the need for other languages, French, German and Spanish are certainly up there, and they're very strongly there. The call for Mandarin Chinese among the global companies was quite considerable. That did spike because they see this not just in terms of the language, it's because the language gives you access to the culture, and working with Chinese nationals puts, if you like, the cultural understanding at a premium because the cultural norms and business expectations, the way professional contexts work, differ. And so obviously if you have greater understanding of the language, you can access the culture even if you are using English as the vehicular language between the two of you, two sides negotiating a deal. If you come in an asymmetrical way, with only one side having both languages and you operating only in English, you're at a disadvantage. So in the sense of the exoticism and the need for a cultural understanding, Mandarin Chinese is certainly going to be a language of the future. If you link it to market flows, and Diane mentioned this earlier, I mean, we hear of these acronyms like BRIC, for example, Brazil, Russia, India, China. We hear of MINT, Mexico, Indonesia, Nigeria, Turkey. We hear of these different emerging markets. CVIT countries have been talked about, but you know that's Colombia, Indonesia. Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey. Now you can see in those countries already that some of those markets have fallen away, or they are very volatile. So we wouldn't want to think, and neither does business, it doesn't think in terms of let's have a longer term investment in something which is going to be very unpredictable and very volatile. It's looking for strong global languages. So, for example, Chinese is a massive market, and fluctuations in that market are unlikely to make it less important in the future. Some of the other markets are more unpredictable, and we wouldn't see those as curricular languages, if you like, in that sense. Having said that, if you are a speaker of any of these languages, or any other language apart from English, living in this country, keep it alive. Because as I mentioned to you earlier, we are working across all markets. And if you're an SME, a small to medium enterprise, or any smaller organization, you could be working with any different community. So all of your languages are going to be important. The languages of the future will include certainly our major European languages, certainly Chinese. Is Russian important? Yes, of course it is. Of course it is, because it's an important world power still, and an important market. We need to have Russian speakers, and we have too few. In terms of Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, yes, we do need more Brazilian Portuguese speakers. But again, where do we look for those? We're going to look for them from different sources. If you have those languages, keep them alive in your communities. If you're going to university and you want to study a wider range of languages, maybe you're starting with Spanish, extend. Use your knowledge of one language to add assets and add other languages. So in a sense, what I'm saying to you is that all languages are of value. Some have more commercial value immediately and are likely to have longer commercial value for the longer term. It's not just about commerce. If you're thinking about social cohesion, Arabic is important, politically and diplomatically also. So in a sense, I wouldn't want to overvalue one language above another, but we do need to be aware that our major activity is still with mainland Europe. It's still going to be French, German, Spanish. We do need Chinese.
Well, thank you very much. And on that note, I'm afraid we need to conclude our webinar today because we have just run out of time. I do apologize because we didn't have time to answer all the questions that came in. So thank you very much to a wonderful audience of people who have sent in most interesting questions. And please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists today. So the next webinar will be probably at the end of February, so please keep watching the RoutesLIVE website and to find information about the next webinar in the series. Thank you very much for being with us today, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.